There is a secret to the warrior arts, one that has nothing to do with training, nothing to do with fancy movements, and it is the willingness to trade lives with your enemy, to never fight for anything you would not die for. And those who fight for glory or gold or power stand on a shifting sand, not the bedrock of true courage. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Happy Kathleen Kennedy Day, folks. Ain't that the bestest thing ever?
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where you will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Glad to have you with us tonight. And since this is the part of the program where we traditionally talk about the worst people in the world, it is only fitting that we should open with a momentous bit of news out of the entertainment world, where, after what feels like several years of persistent rumors and whispers and innuendos regarding her impending departure, our long national nightmare is over, and Kathy Kennedy is finally, mercifully, well and truly gone as the CEO of Disney Star Wars. It's all too easy to forget as we sit here in January of 2026 that back in 2012, when Bob Iger and the Mouse House purchased George Lucas's namesake studio and its associated subsidiaries for the price of $4 billion, the Star Wars franchise only consisted of 2 film trilogies, a handful of animated series, the holiday special that everyone likes to pretend didn't happen, and a vast licensed expanded universe of novels, comics, and games that existed alongside but were not necessarily strictly binding upon George Lucas's own canon. And that corpus of content took 35 years to be created. If we go back a bit farther to the spring of 1999, when people were camping out on the sidewalk for over a month in order to be the first ones to see what wound up being one of the worst highly profitable movies anybody ever made, the Star Wars universe at that point, over the first 20 plus years of its existence, in the larger part of the public consciousness at least, amounted to 3 movies and very little else. If you were a really hardcore fan, you might have read the Alan Dean Foster novelizations and the trilogy of Timothy Zahn sequel books, which is to say, to the extent that Star Wars gained an outsized cultural footprint, which it very much did, it didn't have anything to do with a high volume of content. It had to do with the fact that a lot of people really liked the modest amount of content that there was. And what was Kathy Kennedy's first act when she took the reins of what was now Disney Lucasfilm? Well, she declared that all of that expanded universe content was now non-canonical, and she flushed it right down the shitter. Because by God, this is the Kathyverse now, and you insolent plebes better start getting used to it. The Kathyverse is going to be very gynocentric, very politically progressive. It's going to contain so much live action content that nobody could ever keep track of it all. And much of that content is going to be so cringe-inducingly awful that some revisionist historians will be impelled to argue that the films of the prequel trilogy were actually good movies. That $4 billion purchase price, when we factor in nearly a decade and a half of inflation, translates to around $5.5 billion today. Is the Star Wars brand worth $5.5 billion right now? It almost certainly is not. In point of fact, it might not even be worth more than the 2012 sticker price. And why is that? It's because George Lucas understood something that Kathy Kennedy does not. It's a thing Disney used to understand, but which they stopped understanding when Bob Iger took over, namely that scarcity creates value. Constant streams of new content, on the other hand, diminish value, and especially when the new content sucks. But because George Lucas understood that scarcity creates value, he was able to make a trio of very god-awful movies that still made a shitload of money. He made the most wildly successful film trilogy in the history of the world. It ended in 1983, and he obstinately refused to make any more films for over a decade and a half. And that mattered. That's why the brand was worth $4 billion in 2012, even though half of the 6 movies were really quite terrible. But when Kathy took over, her marching orders from Mr. Iger were perfectly clear. We want content, content, content. We want so much content that people don't even have a chance to take a breather after watching the last Star Wars thing before it is time to watch the next Star Wars thing. And of course, there was something larger and far more sinister at work here too, and it has much to do also with Disney's acquisition of Marvel Studios in that same year of 2012, but we will get to that in due course. First, let's do a brief post-mortem, or as brief as it can be given the sheer amount of content, of live-action Disney Star Wars under the stewardship of Kathy Kennedy. Concomitant with the announcement that the expanded universe was being tossed in the rubbish bin came the announcement that we are making a brand new trilogy of films that will pick up the story where we left off back in 1983. And it's going to be great, guys, because we are getting the band back together. Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, R2, 3PO, the whole gang that you know and love. Will they be on screen together at the same time? Well, that's not important right now. The important thing is December 2015, make your plans now. It is going to be the best thing ever. And what did we get in December of 2015? Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Were there a lot of red flags about what was to come after? Yes, there were. Were most people willing to overlook those warning signs and red flags and give the benefit of the doubt? Yes, they were. And your humble correspondent was one of those people. I wasn't necessarily averse to a female protagonist. Is it weird that she is a perfect Mary Sue girl boss who magically knows how to do everything the plot requires of her and don't need no man for nothing? Yeah, kinda. Is it weird that Luke Skywalker got reduced to a narrative MacGuffin who only makes one very brief wordless appearance at the very end of the film? Yeah, kinda. Is it weird that we brought Han Solo back just so we could stab him in the heart and chuck him off a bridge? Yeah, kinda. Is it weird that we had to turn Leia into General Leia because being a princess just isn't feminist enough? Yeah, kinda. But it's okay. It's way better than The Phantom Menace. It feels, aesthetically at least, like we're in a Star Wars movie, at least compared to the prequel trilogy when there was just people in big green rooms pretending to interact with things that weren't there. So it's an improvement, even if we are damning with faint praise. So mark your calendars for episode 8. It comes out in 2 years. It's going to be fantastic. Oh, but no, you actually don't have to wait 2 years. You know why? Because we are not just making a sequel trilogy. We are also making new standalone Star Wars movies. In fact, we are going to put out a new Star Wars picture every single year until the goddamn end of time. And how exciting is that? So in addition to marking your calendar for episode 8 in 2017, mark your 2016 calendar for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Remember that one line in the original Star Wars about how somebody stole the plans for the Death Star? Well, we are giving that one line of dialogue its very own movie. You are welcome. Is it weird that we get another Mary Sue girl boss protagonist who is perfect at everything and don't need no man for nothing, who doesn't crack a single smile in the entire film? Yeah, kinda, but that's not important now. The important thing is, would you look at all those Memba berries? If Memba berries were hardcore porn, this picture would be the bastard love child of Deep Throat and Debbie Does Dallas. Look, it's Darth Vader. Look, it's Grand Moff Tarkin. Look, we dragged Peter Cushing out of his grave just for the occasion. Look, AT-ATs, X-Wings, and Admiral Akbar. Remember that guy? Me too. Why, it's all I can do to avoid touching myself right here in the theater, so I sure am excited for episode 8. And then 2017 arrives, and along with it, Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. This time, the warning signs and the red flags were pretty difficult to ignore. You had a director who seemed to take great delight in mocking and antagonizing Star Wars fans on Twitter. You had a bought and paid for entertainment press who were so over the top and so obsequious with their advanced reviews, so effusive and so unconditional in their praise, making this thing out to be like the Citizen Kane of the space opera genre, that it was difficult not to surmise that there was something else going on here, and it was something not altogether good. Our perfect, infallible Mary Sue girl boss who don't need no man for nothing makes her triumphant return, and she is even more perfect at everything now. Personality-wise, she's gone from, I don't know, she seems a bit full of herself, but I'm willing to overlook it, straight to, this chick is so insufferable, she probably sits around sniffing her own farts for a leisure activity. Meanwhile, Luke Skywalker has had his name changed to Cucky Simpington. He is a middle-aged white male, after all, and middle-aged white males must never be portrayed favorably. If you liked Luke Skywalker as a kid and you're upset seeing him depicted like this, it is your own damn fault for having a white male hero. Maybe you will think twice the next time, you damn filthy misogynist. And so, Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight, savior of the rebellion, archetype of duty and honor and moral virtue for the whole galaxy, fights his last battle on a Zoom call and promptly drops dead from a broken vagina. If you toxic white male assholes had a problem with that movie, well, it is because you are toxic white male assholes. Because all the fancy professional film critics said it was the greatest thing since tampons in the boys' restroom. So clearly the problem lies with you. In any event, mark your calendars for 2019 because we are going to finish this piece of shit trilogy, though we are not exactly sure how. We already fired the first director and rejected 3 different scripts, so who knows, maybe we will just bring J.J. Abrams back, a man who has never successfully finished a story in his whole natural-born life, and tell him to finish the story. But it's going to be great. Just you wait and see. Oh, but you don't need to wait that long, because remember how we stabbed Han Solo through the heart and chucked his geriatric ass off a bridge? Well, we've got a peace offering for all you whiny fucks who didn't like that. And what's more, we are still obstinately sticking to our plan of releasing a new Star Wars picture each and every year, no matter how much it continues to devalue the brand. So mark your calendars, you toxic white male assholes, for 2018 and a little piece of work we like to call Solo, a Star Wars story. You remember that one line from the first Star Wars where Han Solo says some shit about making the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs? Well, get this. It's going to blow your mind. We took that one line of dialogue and made a whole movie about it. Is this the second time we have done that? That's not important now. The important thing is consume product and get ready for next product. And I bet you didn't even know Lando Calrissian is a pansexual who fucks robots. But that's the kind of invaluable universe-expanding lore that you can expect from the Han Solo movie. Did we fire the directors halfway through production because they just weren't Kathy-tastic enough? That's not important now. Just shut up and consume. God damn it. Speaking of consumption, did you know streaming platforms are a thing now, and Disney has its own streaming platform? You know what this means? Lots and lots and lots and lots of Star Wars streaming content. At least 10 times more Star Wars streaming content than any sane person could ever actually want. And even better, it is all going to suck. A lot. Except for the first season of The Mandalorian. Somehow, improbably, against all the odds, that's actually going to be pretty good. Everything else, not so much. I bet you didn't even know you wanted a streaming series about Boba Fett, or a streaming series about Obi-Wan Kenobi getting girl-bossed around by a sassy 9-year-old Princess Leia, or a streaming series about some dude from the Rogue One movie whose death you have already seen, or a streaming live-action series about a cartoon character that didn't exist in any of the films, but she is a female girl boss who don't need no man for nothing, so obviously she gets her own show, or The Acolyte. And really, how does one even describe The Acolyte, except to say that if you've ever fantasized about being a deeply untalented, deeply unhappy Hollywood lesbian who used to be Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant, who somehow, by some impossible stroke of luck, was given $300 million to make a Star Wars series, then you were in The Acolyte's target audience. So admittedly, it's a bit of a niche product. That's probably why it was watched by approximately 18 people in total. And even all 18 of them agreed it was a piece of shit, because when you've crossed the bridge of lesbian space witches doing a song and dance number How many bridges are there left to cross, really? Oh, but we still haven't dealt with the final cinematic installment of the Cathyverse Rise of Skywalker 2019. The one where we had to reanimate the corpse of Emperor Palpatine and make him the big bad final boss because we were so totally out of ideas, which obviously completely invalidates and undermines everything Luke Skywalker did in the original trilogy. It makes Darth Vader's moral redemption totally meaningless, but those guys were toxic white males anyway, so it doesn't matter. The important thing is, our flawless girl boss protagonist still don't need no man for nothing. She rescues the universe solely through the mighty power of estrogen, and then she moves into Luke Skywalker's house and steals his name. It is a very happy, very uplifting story. But do you remember the climactic scene at the end of that picture where the reanimated Emperor Palpatine has Rey and Kylo Ren both standing in front of him, and he's like, ooh, yes, this is just what I've always wanted, and he tries to suck all the Force juice out of both of them? Well, I've got a bit of a metaphor to drop on you that goes to my overarching thesis. Replace Emperor Palpatine with Mickey Mouse. Replace Rey and Kylo Ren with Star Wars and Marvel. Because I think that's exactly what Disney was trying to do when Bob Iger decided to acquire both of those properties in that same year of 2012. Star Wars and Marvel had both demonstrated the ability to do something that Bob Iger's Disney very badly wanted to do, namely, to retain customers into adulthood who would normally age out of the brand when childhood ends. If Disney could acquire that ability, if they could suck out that Force juice, then it wouldn't matter if they utterly ruined those two brands in the process. The expenditure would be more than worthwhile in the long run. And there's no mystery in any of this. When Bob Iger became the head of Disney in 2005, he said right out loud, he put it down in writing that this was what he wanted to achieve with Disney. When you have to recapture each generation of children, there is too much uncertainty in that. You have to rely on parents passing their own nostalgic attachments down to their kids, and can they be relied upon to do that? That used to be Disney's model. It was their model for a very long time. You remember the commercials they used to show during the VHS era and the DVD era, where they would say, remember such and such classic Disney movie? We are releasing it just for a limited time, and then it's going back in the vault, so you better act now and share it with your kids while you have the chance. It goes back to that whole concept of scarcity creating value, even if the scarcity is false, invented, and contrived. But Bob Iger saw too much margin for error in that model. Capture the children and keep them permanently captured, he said. Don't let them age out of their brand loyalty. Turn them into grown adults who spend all of their disposable income on the same Disney characters and products that made them happy when they were 7 or 8 years old. He looked at Marvel and
I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get right back to that in just a moment and see what we've got in our future. First of all, I want to make a few points. He's absolutely right on every single aspect, with one exception. The second season of Andor was acceptable. In fact, it went very far to pull the trash out of the fire for the first season of Andor. Welcome back, brother. You back in gear?
I guess momentarily at least.
Okay. I thought it was me. I've been having internet problems all day. Give me 2 seconds. I'll get your cue.
I'm not sure where I dropped off. I got to set this thing back up though.
Yeah. Give me a second and I'll get your cue.
Okay.
Something Marvel.
That was going so well too.
It was. Okay, the same products that make them so happy spend all their disposable income on the same products that made them so happy.
That made
the same
when they were 7, 8, 9 years. Okay, let me
right.
find it.
Right. Right. Okay. Also, if you want to watch something Star Wars that has absolutely nothing to do with Star Wars, and you want to watch a fun, happy show that kind of makes you feel better, but still has all of the proper woke talking points without it being like pelvic thrusted directly into your eye sockets, check out Skeleton Crew. It's a dopey sort of there is really nothing good specifically that I can say about it except that it's not terrible, and it's Goonies in space, and what's not to love about that? It's worth a watch.
Indeed.
The dialogue's horrible, the plot's terrible, there's no part of it that makes any sense, but does it really need to in order to be a fun watch?
All right. I think I've got my spot if you want me to pick back up.
All right, do your own count in and we'll let it fly.
All right. You remember the commercials they used to show during the VHS, DVD era? Remember such and such classic Disney movie? We're releasing it just for a limited time, then it's going back into the vault, so you better act now and share it with your kids while you have the chance. It goes back to that whole concept of scarcity creating value, even if the scarcity is false, invented, and contrived. But Bob Iger saw too much margin for error in that model. Capture the children and keep them permanently captured, he said. Don't let them age out of their brand loyalty. Turn them into grown adults who spend all of their disposable income on the same Disney characters and products that made them happy when they were 7 or 8 or 9 years old. He looked at Marvel and Star Wars and saw two brands that had demonstrated the ability to do just that. And he wanted to suck out all of that precious Force juice. And it's difficult to argue that he didn't succeed. By the company's own estimates, on some days, upwards of 50% of the visitors to Disney parks are childless adults. When people line up to get a hug and a picture from a Disney character, sometimes most of the people in the line are obese, childless female adults. There is an entire Disney adult internet subculture where people proudly wear that label without a hint of shame or embarrassment. And because childless adults who exist in a state of permanent arrested childhood are overwhelmingly more likely to be of a leftist progressive political bent, it only stands to reason that the Marvel and Star Wars brands should be hollowed out and turned into vessels for that same ideology. Not because anybody in the corporate boardroom actually believes in those politics, but because aligning the company in that direction aids in the cause of creating more Disney adults and capturing ever larger shares of their income. But I know what you're wondering right now, and it's a thing that I wonder too. The fatal flaw in this strategy is that when you turn Disney into being primarily a lifestyle brand for childless adults, when those people inevitably die in that same state of childlessness, aren't you still faced with the problem of finding a new generation to capture? Well, yeah, you are. But I guess from Bob Iger's perspective, he will be dead and gone with all of his money made by the time that becomes an issue for his successors. So what the hell does he really care? Meanwhile, the rest of us are left to grapple with the fact that there is nothing healthy or normative about a society in which a significant portion of the adult population is intentionally childless and only cares about children's products. How do we fix that? Well, I can't say. But recognizing that it's a problem, and a problem whose ramifications extend far outside the world of entertainment, would seem to be a necessary first step. And if you take issue with any part of this thesis, then be warned. If you flame me in the chat, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. I am done. That's all I've got, which means we have reached the part of the program where I transmit you into the custody of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the only Jedi Master who resembles an overgrown Ewok, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. For tonight, we are going to delve deeply into all things Star Wars and what a wonderful beginning this could possibly be. Am I especially looking forward to it? Yes. Do I have a whole lot of hope for the future? Dave Filoni's not terrible. He did an excellent first season of The Mandalorian until, Disney got involved, and the next thing you know, it went into straight trash. Although they had an excellent casting choice for their trash. How far down this rabbit hole you want to go, brother?
All the way to the goddamn bottom. Yeah, I think Filoni is a wild card. I don't think we have any way of predicting how it's going to go with him. But I would submit that it's probably encouraging that he's only running the creative side and not the business side. They have got some new woman running the business side, and hopefully she won't be. Yeah, I don't know. And how is that dynamic even going to work? Who is going to have the final editorial review as far as final say goes? I guess that's all open to finding out what happens. But Kathy is gone, and that is the crucially important thing. And now we have two Star Wars holidays on the calendar. We have May the 4th and January the 15th, which is Ding Dong the Witch is Dead Day.
Yeah,
I would say we should play the song, but I know we will catch a copyright strike because I say that from experience.
Right. It's Kathleen Kennedy Day, and I want it celebrated till the end of time as such, the day she left Lucasfilm. All right,
it's more important than Juneteenth. God damn it!
It is definitely significant. But it's significant remains to be seen. All of this is in the future. Remember, there were at least 10 Star Wars products on the boilerplate when she stepped down. So, what's going to happen to those? No idea. I assume enough of her influence is already in place, like that the scripts, the financing, the casting, all of that stuff has already probably been through the ringer, and we're going to have to deal with at least a few more properties coming out that are directly tied to her oversight.
And the biggest question that has to be asked is, to what extent is the brand already irretrievably ruined to the point where it can't possibly recover its previous level of prestige, no matter how well Dave Filoni does? And that's another thing that's impossible to answer, probably.
I propose you look at the first season of Mandalorian for possibilities. Granted, and yes, it is an entirely derivative thing, but what Dave Filoni did with it was do what Disney and Marvel and Star Wars has been doing for 15 years, but he nailed it where they missed it. He took the baby, what was the name? The Lost Wolf was Lone Wolf and Pup series out of freaking the mid 80s. There was this series. It's basically what would happen if Kurosawa filmed a happy-go-lucky samurai carrying around a baby, and he put it in Star Wars, and then did each of the classic Kurosawa films all the way through the season, and it worked.
Yeah, and it was good. It was really good. I would go so far as to say the first season of The Mandalorian was the best Star Wars product since Return of the Jedi, and that's saying something.
Right, but, and the very moment Kathleen Kennedy and Disney stuck their little fingers in that pie, it went screwy.
Yeah, and she just couldn't leave it well enough alone. And you're right that there was a lot of Kurosawa in there, and Kurosawa influences, when they are done right, can be really good. You can copy paste Kurosawa onto all manner of different things and make it work if you actually know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, then there's just as big a likelihood that you might make a fool of yourself, as we've talked about recently with some of the other god-awful movies we have discussed and reviewed.
Absolutely. I'm going to call attention to a specific episode of The Mandalorian. I'm not sure exactly where it falls in the series, but it's the one where he goes to the Shotka farm with the shrimps, and he fights a group of like rogue commandos that have gotten a hold to an AT-AT, right?
Yeah, I remember it.
That is the story of George and the Dragon. It is exactly beat for beat. they discover a dragon in the hinterlands and go forth and hunt it down and kill it. It happens to be an AT-AT, and there happens to be like rogue commandos and shit running it, a pirate group or whatever.
And that's a lot of what makes that first season of that show so worth watching and so high quality. It's the creator recognizing that, and it's a crucial thing to recognize when you are in the creative business, the fact that every archetypal story has already been told 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 times already, and you earn your stripes as a creator by learning how to effectively I don't want to say copy paste, but translate those story archetypes into things that are relevant in the franchise that you're working in and the time in which you were living. And he did a lot of those things right in the first season of that show. And it's really a god awful shame that he couldn't have just been left alone and to continue by his own devices. And I think things were already going downhill with that show when the Gina Carano thing happened. But once the Gina Carano thing happened, that thing went off the cliff into Eastwood Ravine and crashed in a big fiery ball of fieriness. And my instinct is that the movie they're currently making is not going to do all that well. I don't think it's going to do as well as they want it to do. I don't think it's going to do as well as they probably are trying to convince themselves it might, because I think Star Wars is to a large extent currently a ruined brand, and they have a lot of work to do in order to recoup anything resembling the prestige that the brand had 13 or 14 years ago when George first sold it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, they've tainted an awful lot of the core values of Star Wars, and the power of friendship is great and everything, but if you're not being friendly while doing it, it's not friendship.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't
go ahead.
And I don't think anybody is necessarily opposed in principle to female protagonists or strong female characters. And I go back to the Gina Carano example. Gina Carano, the actress and the character she was portraying, she should have been right absolutely in the wheelhouse of left feminist progressives. She is a strong, powerful woman who can kick the ass of 95% of the men on the face of the planet. She is also perfectly in touch with her femininity and not remotely unattractive. She is the archetype of exactly what you're looking for, but she expresses one opinion that is not necessarily 100% sanguine with what Kathy Kennedy thinks, and she has gone off the reservation, voted off the island within a matter of moments. And that's, I think, that did more to lose the Star Wars franchise goodwill with the fans than probably any other single thing in her tenure, including The Last Jedi.
I want to call attention to a totally different property in a totally different universe that has nothing to do with any of this, but is an excellent example of utilizing the girl boss format without crippling the capabilities of the show. If anyone's watched The Expanse, one of the best sci-fi series that's been made in the past 20 years, this includes some of Galactica and Serenity, Firefly, but an excellent series. There is a character in this series named Bobby Draper. She is a Mars Marine who has been trained to be an absolute freaking unit. When you see her interacting on set with the different other Marines, whether they're Mars, Earth, or the Lunar Corps, or whoever, she has a stage presence that is undeniable. Part of that comes down to the fact that that woman was in a gym every single day that she was shooting. She put on something like 25 pounds of muscle for that role. When you go back and see her in some of her earlier and her later films, she is quite an effeminate female, slight and gentle. She's not 6'7". Now, I'm pretty sure she wore lifts in the show, but what I'm speaking towards is the depiction of a strong female character that doesn't feel forced and artificial. She felt real. She felt like you could walk down to the convenience store over here, walk in and see a Marine standing in front of you that looked just like Bobby Draper, and then she would drop off 5 of the guys in that place with very little effort, and then turn around and do quite a feminine role in some of her later pictures. I think she was Hawkeye's like stepdaughter or whatever the hell that is that's chasing him around after a while. I think she's the same chick that played that role. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chad. I know you will. I'm just saying that type of character, the Rey character, the Mary Sue girl boss who don't need no man for nothing and doesn't have to train and spends 5 minutes with some esoteric bit of Jedi material and then learns absolutely everything there is to know about the entire Jedi universe through a little meditation and lightsaber playing and some communing with her very, very emo boyfriend. They're definitely soulmates. I mean, they're attached through the Force. Isn't that what we're all looking for in life? Someone who's attached to us at our soul, someone to complete us, and they are opposite sides of the same coin. That's one thing they did get done fairly well without too many problems. The issue comes around when you've got emo boys over here going absolutely superficial on everything. And then you turn around and you have Rey over here who's even more superficial than the Sith. And that makes no sense. There's no hero there. In fact, I would argue that Emo Boy Toy was more of a hero than Rey because he actually defied his entire backstory in order to become part of the, fight for good. That wasn't her. That was him. Am I talking to a bunch of snack pack chuckers? Well, damn it, I'm going to keep leaving him a spot to answer until he stops freezing on me. But it's not just him. I'm having my own problems over here. You can see it in the YouTube. It's fruiting all up. Screw it. I'll look like a bloated Rob Zombie. Why not? I wonder if y'all can even hear me. How bad is it? Okay, cool. We can hear. That's something. I guess I could go up to Avatar and that might help a little bit, but I don't know what else to do. That's probably as much his internet as it is mine. Okay, cool. All right, in that case. So here we are. We're on the cusp of a brand new era of Disney Star Wars. This will also have ramifications with Marvel, any other property attached to Disney. You ever watched Raising Arizona? Disney owns Raising Arizona. There was some shit rumbling around in the backstages about there being a Raising Arizona series. And I'm thinking, how do you recreate that chemistry in a series? That's impossible. It's impossible, man. You're going to try to cast someone other than Nick Cage in that role, you're out. There's no way. That won't work. There's also been some discussion of Amazon picking up doing some a new Firefly series that is almost completely unrelated to Firefly. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. It depends on how the property is handled. They haven't got a really good track record, but I think maybe in this case, it's been so long since Fireflies had anything that anything would do better than nothing. And I still believe that franchise has some really solid legs under it. It has a very devoted following. It has an extremely devoted following with absolutely almost nothing. There's no hate watchers out there for that show. You either like it or have never heard of it. And as soon as you hear about it and find out about it, and you hear about Jane and his heroic rise to fame on some mutter planet, you're hooked. I mean, it's perfect. So I'm hopeful. I have hopes that they will abbreviate some of their scheduling. Let's say a series a year and a movie every other year or every 3 years, perhaps. And just do that. Also, I say we enact the wheels, right? You have a computer AI generated Luke Skywalker wake up from a horrible dream right after the Battle of Endor and say, "Oh my God, I have to go prevent the end of the world." And he runs off, and then we follow some other story away, kind of like they did with Splinter of the Mind's Eye and whatnot. Add yourself as you will. Hopefully this will work this time.
I'm really quite sorry.
Don't sweat it, dude. I'm having similar issues over here. It's just not quite kicking me. I'm freezing up and stuff. It's not just you. So, hour 16, very heartfelt compatriots are toughing it out with us, and I appreciate it. You went up to 29 during the beginning of the first part of your monologue. You had almost 30 people in here, and then it froze, and it went from 29 to 16. All right, so where were we at? Oh, Jesus fucking monkey. It's only mildly irritating if you let it get to you. The technical issues are part of the show. So Dave Filoni comes in. Instead of doing Kurosawa, he takes a look at some Ray Bradbury, a little bit of
hey, all right.
You'll get there, dude. As soon as you get back in, I'll let you.
As joyous as it is, never being able to get out a single sentence.
Oh, this is bad. Turn off your camera. Like, turn off
what a pleasant upset that we got through the first.
It's chopping up bad, brother. Click your avatar, doohickey. And sometimes that helps with the sound. It'll also make you not freeze up as much because I can't tell. Shh, that's a streamer secret. So Dave Filoni takes a look at a handful of other classics. Let's say Alfred Hitchcock. Let's say he takes a cue straight from Alfred Hitchcock, goes out and starts making serial killer slasher films about the Star Wars galaxy. If it is done properly, that would sell. People would eat that trash up, right?
If it was good, absolutely.
Flip the script over, change the coin, the other face, right? You look at it and you go, oh, let's take some Isaac Asimov, some of the, and all through all of this, there has to be an awareness of the extended universe and Legends material. As long as the individuals involved in these projects are familiar enough with, like, the way they totally screwed over, in fact, I don't even believe that was Admiral Thrawn, right? I think that was a ringer, because that's been done in Star Wars 2 or 3 times, where somebody traipsed out a chest saying, hey, here's Admiral Thrawn, y'all better be scared. And then somebody walked up, just stabbed him in the back. The Thrawn wouldn't fall like that.
Right. We're kind of pretending very falsely that we are dialing back the deletion of the expanded universe, but we're not really dialing it back. Just, here's this character who you may vaguely recognize, and hooray for us, because we're trying to build goodwill with the fandom, but it doesn't really land because you're doing it in a way that's based upon, like I said in the monologue, it's based upon a character from, where is Ahsoka from? She's from the Clone Wars series, isn't she?
Yes.
So yeah, you're not drawing directly from the material that you've deleted. You're actually including it as a sort of derivative ingredient in a soup of something that you actually do consider an authorized product, and it just doesn't land very well. I don't think it lands as being a disingenuous sort of attempt to claw back a bit of public goodwill when everything you've done has been failing and failing and failing because it sucks so very badly.
Yeah. And I do kind of have one complaint about Dave Filoni in The Mandalorian, and I know everyone raves about the show. He was so obvious in his execution from the source material of Kurosawa, and utilizing simply the elements of Star Wars that were useful for visual characteristics, it kind of feels a little phoned in, but then again, it's so well done up to the point where the Mandalorian takes his mask off that you forgive all the fact that you've seen every scene you see here is forgiven because of the depth and texture of the actual presentation, right? When they go in that first episode, when they're on that planet and he lands and he goes to that bar, and I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold, and the implication is I can bring you in alive or dead. And that's not it at all. He's going to bring him in alive, but you can be alive and breathing or stuffed in carbonite. I don't give a damn. You know?
And there's a fine line you have to walk when you are attempting to transpose the motifs of
Becoming difficult.
But in Filoni's defense, I would say that he was at least less on the nose with it than Zack Snyder was when he made the diverse Magnificent Seven in space that we were talking about last week.
Hold on, bro. Like, after watching that show and realizing that it is a much better movie muted, I did exactly what I said to do and stuck it on as like just over there. And I want you to know the two grandbabies in there sat and stared at that TV like 80% of the first movie without any sound coming out of it. They were perfectly fine with it. And when I started the second movie, I turned the sound on and they hid behind the couch to play together rather than sit in front of the TV where they could hear it. And I came in and muted it and they were right back in front of the TV playing, doing what they were doing. So it's very beautiful.
Oh, speaking of grandbabies, since you brought it up, I don't think I've mentioned yet that I am finally at long last going to be a grandfather on the 2nd of August if the schedule holds.
Congratulations, my brother. Perhaps our
Thank you
children
very much indeed.
play together in the streets one day. And if not, perhaps they can riot against each other or something.
Indeed. And that's what really matters.
Apparently, you know. I have a dream.
Maybe one day they can get run over while trying to interfere with federal law enforcement operations.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So, what do you think? You got me. You got me finally. What do you think about our likelihood of getting good, solid Star Wars properties? I know,
it's
right?
difficult to say. If you're asking me to put a percentage on it, it goes back to the thing you mentioned before, that we first have to clear out the pipeline of all the things that are currently in production that were greenlit by Kathy, because we have more than enough reason to assume that those things are uniformly going to suck. And I think that probably includes the Mandalorian and Grogu movie or whatever it's going to be called. But as soon as we get into the Filoni only era, if indeed he is given, carte blanche in terms of the creative decision making, I would have to rate it 50-50 or better. I mean, that's as optimistic as I'm willing to get, probably. How about you?
I was going to go 40-60. Actually, I'll go 40-50 and a 10% chance that it's just the same thing, that nothing changes, right? That it's not actually them running it, that someone else has their finger in the pie.
And also we have to rate the possibility, which has to be non-zero, of whether Disney decides to divest itself of the franchise altogether.
Yeah, no, we discussed that a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, actually, where we brought up the question: do you divest yourself of Disney or Star Wars or Marvel? And I think you've got to offload Marvel on that one. Marvel is an absolute bust. You can't do anything with it because you've already carved your way into all of these individual actors who now demand millions and millions and millions of dollars each to make appearances. And there's not a really way to make a profit on that, or at least the profit you make is not as useful to the company as it would be if you weren't already $750 million in debt when you started making the movie.
And I know we've had the conversation already, but has there been any change in your view regarding how well we think this upcoming Avengers picture is going to do? Because I think it's going to be pretty underwhelming. Based on how well they need it to do in order to get them to where they want to be.
Regardless of the actual quality of the film, it will underperform because no one's expecting it to be worth a damn. And are we talking about the Doctor Doom thing that's fixing to happen?
Yeah.
Okay. And they have completely screwed the pooch with casting Robert Downey Jr. as Von Doom. That there is only one explicative method that could be the case, and that's if this Robert Downey Jr. is from a alternate timeline universe where Stark became Von Doom instead of becoming Iron Man. But the entire history of this guy, how much do you know about Doom?
Less than you, but probably more than most people.
Okay, so basically, he is an aristocrat of old money from the old world who lives in a castle and purchased his way into every single thing he does. He is a master,
right? Latveria?
Something like that. Yeah, it's like Lustivonia or Latveria, whatever. Anyway,
one of those made up European Marvel countries.
It's a good one. It's like Lithonia or some shit. I can't remember. But anyway, he's an old world, old money aristocrat who is also something of a Lex Luthor level genius, right? He's just Tony Stark. Tony Stark is a really good analog for except he's European with all of the European foibles and things. And he's unconscionably private. He uses like unseen servants and spiritual aides to manage his household, and then has a living staff that are basically there for appearances. Like the butler's the best butler ever, except it's not his butler. He's actually a Aikido master of the fourth genre. You know what I'm saying? The maid's not a maid. She's a hitman from the CIA. the fucking TV repairman's not a TV repairman. He used to do wire work for Black Sabbath. Like, he's the best in the world at what he does. But when you compare him to Stark, there are a lot of similarities in their methodology of how they go about doing shit, with one exception. Von Doom is a magician. He's a fucking wizard, bro. Like, literally. He's like Doctor Strange type wizard, not a Howard Stark not a Howard Stark wizard.
And it's a character that carries a lot of baggage based on the previous cinematic depictions, which have always been uniformly pretty terrible. And ranging from terrible to just unconscionably god-awfully embarrassing. And that has to be taken into account too. You also have to take into account that one gets the feeling that there is such a sense of desperation at Marvel Studios that they are trying to jam so many actors and so many characters and so many universes, so many timelines into this one film that there is no way it can possibly succeed. One gets the impression that they are just hurling handfuls of crap against the wall, trying to get anything to stick in order to recover some of the prestige that the franchise had up until 2019. And I don't think there's any way that can be done. The only way you can claw back, well, let's face it, movies in general are never going to be cinematically, theatrically what they were until 2019. For a variety of reasons, that world is well and truly gone. And recovery has to start with an acknowledgement of that fact. I would be surprised if there is $1 billion theatrical movie ever again. No matter who you put in it, no matter what movie it is, no matter what it's about, I just think that world is gone. And I don't think you can cast and spend your way out of that.
No, I think that's already been done. This is the result of doing that thing. In fact, they went so far as to take the Red Witch, Scarlet, right? Scarlet Witch. She was a fairly mainstream actor, but she was nowhere near what she is now as far as her revenue stream is concerned. And so they basically created her entire career from an already decent career, right?
Yeah.
Disney has propped up that entire thing. The chick that played Phoenix as well. I can't
Sophie
remember.
Turner.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. She is a great actress in her genres where she's great. She is great. Okay. She deserves every bit of accolade she gets. She is not Laura
Lara
Croft.
Croft.
And I want you to go look at the 3 images of the 3 Laura Crofts, and you'll notice that cup size drops with each image.
Yeah, and that's something that we need to talk about in terms of the the girl bossery of current day Hollywood, and it goes back, I would submit, all the way to casting Daisy Ridley to play the female girl boss protagonist in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. It's like they intentionally cast a girl with no tits and no ass just so that she wouldn't be subject to the dreaded male gaze. To which I submit, what the hell is wrong with the male gaze? Why is it bad for men to find actresses attractive? When did that become a crime? Because you know what? If the male gaze doesn't exist, the species is going to die out pretty goddamn quickly. And do we want the species to die out? I don't think we do. Is there anything wrong with having hot actresses with big tits and nice asses? I would submit there is not. But Hollywood seems to operate today in the opposite assumption.
I agree. I don't have an answer for this. All I can think of is the lesbians in charge of Star Wars casting really don't like sexy women. They prefer business women. You know who I think would be their perfect person? Married with Children, the neighbor chick. They would cast Marcy for every role, everywhere, all the time, and just change her outfit and her hair.
Yeah, it's like there seems to be almost an instinctual presumption that you cannot be a credible girl boss character if you are someone who men find attractive. And that's a completely mistaken assumption, because those are the best kind of women. I go back to Gina Carano. She might be a bit of an extreme example, but she is not an unattractive woman, and she could kick my ass in under 7 seconds. And I think that's fantastic. And that's the sort of thing that Hollywood should be celebrating. But she got voted off Woke Island, man. Just one tweet that didn't land quite right for Kathy, and she was freaking gone.
Beep, bop, boop. She put it in the wrong slot. If she'd have stuck it in a comment, it would have been fine. If she'd tweeted it out, it would have been no problem. But she stuck it in her gender slot. Beep, bop, boop.
Because her employer required her to list her pronouns. And so quite rightly, she made fun and mocked the entire thing, as any normal person should do. But that was a bridge too far. That was a dastardly, unconscionable crime against the tenets of wokesterism, and that just can't be allowed to go on. We've got to get rid of you if you do that. And there was a similar controversy. Just go ahead.
It was a heresy. She committed a heresy against the regime. Yes. That is what you witnessed.
Absolutely.
I want to know why they haven't put Ronda Rousey in a role somewhere. If you want a girl boss that can whip the shit out of 90% of the men on the earth, who's attractive and can do the thing, fucking give her lines, put her in roles where it works. You know, don't try to shoehorn her into a Mary Sue role, because she's not a Mary Sue. She can do the things you want them to do. Let her do it.
I mean, yeah, she was successful in WWE, so we know that she has, you know, the acting chops that are required for that job. So there's no reason why she shouldn't also have the acting chops that are required to be a girl boss action hero. And she's also, like you say, not an unattractive woman. So why the hell not? I mean, yeah, it seems like she would be right in the wheelhouse of the kind of women that current day feminist Hollywood is looking for. And who knows, maybe she has had offers and just doesn't want to take them because she is not aligned with that sort of thinking. And I can't say one way or the other whether that's true.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, there's dozens of women out there that are not unattractive and capable of performing these roles, and none of them are being tapped in exchange for assistants and secretaries of people to be cast in various spots. Right? Star Wars,
Yeah.
that Acolyte fucking disaster, man. I'm sorry. I don't
Oh
mean
my
to-
God.
That thing. I don't know. The casting of that thing is absolutely bonkers, bro. Go look at it. Go look at it and tell me that it looks in any way natural, in any way, shape, form, or fashion. There is not a single frame in any of the Acolyte where you go, hey, look, that looks like normal Star Wars. Oh, no. It's
Yeah.
all weird space witch bullshit.
Right, exactly. And without a few really obvious visual cues, would you ever know you were watching a Star Wars product? I don't think you would.
No. Well, that's what I was saying about Skeleton Crew?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I was saying about it. It's it has nothing in it, no part of the plot, no part of the it's got all your classic things, from the MacGuffin to the plot problems to your sad, dejected, rejected hero who might be a Jedi, might be a Sith, nobody's really sure. There's the lost treasure, the found pirate ship, the old pirate that's resurrected from the dead to help them along on their quest, and the growth and the arc of every child everywhere wants to have experienced, say, an experience dynamic enough that after that summer they feel more adult for having survived the experience, right? And for some
Yeah.
kids at summer camp, for some kids it's that, that summer at grandpa's, or the summer at your Uncle Phil's, or it feels right.
Why is it so? Go ahead.
It feels right for a wacky kid adventure, even though it's over the top, jumps the shark. It feels like grandpa is telling you about something he did when he was 12, right?
Yeah.
You can't really trust the narrator. And so it has this flavor to it that is obviously this isn't real, but at the same time, something like this must happen, right?
Yeah, and there seems to be currently almost a hard and fast prohibition in those same two properties we've been talking about, Marvel and Star Wars, that says female characters cannot have character arcs. They cannot have formative experiences. They cannot experience. They can't learn things, especially not from a man. They can't encounter any sort of difficulties. They can never fail on any level at anything. They have to start out being perfect at everything, and the whole story of the narrative is the whole world realizing how perfect they have always been. And that's exactly what the Star Wars sequel trilogy was.
Right.
We meet Rey, and she is already perfect at everything and knows how to do things that she would never know how to do based on her background and her residence and
Actually,
education.
let's talk about
Go
that.
ahead.
Her background, bro. Her background. All right. So Luke is the son of a moisture farmer who didn't approve of his father's decisions and has a pretty good suspicion that he's not dead, which is the reason why he accepts Luke in the first place, because what the fuck would Bader say if he showed up and I turned his kid away? What do you, how do you, the best bet is to keep him here, safe, well fed, give him some blue milk, and let him run the Anchorhead and the speeder every now and then, right? Okay, let's turn the page. Rey.
Yeah.
Rey is a totally different thing. She was abandoned on a desert planet and has scraped her survival out of the very sands of a war-torn, crashed out, completely junked society through the blood, sweat, and tears of her own effort from the time she was a child. Wait, what?
And
What?
with Luke, the narrative finds a way to explain why he has the skills that he has in terms of piloting vehicles and so on and so forth. We don't get any of that with Rey. She just magically knows how to fly the Millennium Falcon because she's an
And better than
amazing
Han.
magical girl boss.
Better than Han or Chewie or Lando or anyone else who's flown it. XR-717 or
Yeah.
whatever that bitch's name was.
And she magically knows how to fix the hyperdrive by bypassing the compressor. I
I'll
believe it was.
I'll let that one go. That one I'll let go. This is a person who survived on a desert planet through the blood, sweat, and tears of her ability to rip shit apart. And I can let go her happening to know some tidbit about a very esoteric bit of StarCraft, right? Fine. I can get over that. What I can't get over is the 2-week training program that left her bending fucking steel at will. I don't, there's no throughput there. There's no way.
And then, of course, worst of all, she can defeat a fully trained Jedi in single combat the first time she picks up a lightsaber through the magic of vaginas.
Well,
awesome.
I mean, if she had a like some video game armor on, it might have made a little sense, you know. If a nip slip had happened and he lost it, he got distracted, you know. I see something like that. To be quite honest, I don't see it. It's not there really, and I'm just gonna give up on my fucking camera. This whole thing has just been an absolute debacle. Anyway, Skeleton Crew, if you're going to watch Andor, watch both seasons. Don't just stop at the end of the first one because it's absolutely horrible. It ends on a terrible note. Nothing makes any sense. None of this has anything to do with anything anywhere, and it's just a big expose on how terrible people are terrible. ... Season 2 takes all of the disparate elements of the first season that have been led floating in the freaking wind like turds and sews all but a couple of them back together into a narrative that makes some level of sense in reference of the source material and ending with Rogue One. It actually kind of helps Rogue One become a decent movie if you watch it through to completion and then watch Rogue One without getting blurred out by all the other Star Wars material that's out there. It is a fairly succinct database of Star Wars lore that you can go to and be like, okay, if you're going to do oddball Star Wars, this is the way to go about doing it. Season 2 and Rogue One together work. That first season, I don't even know what that was about. I have no idea.
Right. And Rogue One, even though I made fun of it to some extent in the monologue, and I think there are things about it that deserve to be made fun of, especially the preponderance of over-the-top member berries. I will say also, and maybe this is damning with faint praise, that it is the best cinematic motion picture that came out of the Kathy Kennedy era, and I don't think it's really particularly close. What would you say?
Let me think on that for a few minutes, because as far as the full pictures go, it's Star Wars, yes. Yes. I kind of like Solo a little bit, because you got to remember it kind of happened early in Kathleen Kennedy's tenure, and so I was kind of open to it. Was like, hey, maybe it'll be like I said with Skeleton Crew, maybe it'll be a fun romp of a movie. It's about something nobody knows nothing about. I mean, no one's really written about that particular fucking slot. So
yeah, there were some things about Solo that I liked, but I think it's painfully obvious that they changed directors halfway through and reshot much of the picture just so that Ron Howard could get his name on the credits instead of Lord and Miller. And I think if she had just kept her hands off of the thing and let them make the picture they wanted to make, it might have been pretty good. It might have been the best movie in the Kathyverse, but I think she decided that they were making it more comedic than she was comfortable with, and they were unwilling to change what they were doing to satisfy her diktats, and so they said, you're going to have to just fire us if it's going to be like that. And so she just fired him, and then they brought in Ron Howard, and we got the picture that like the Paul Bettany character. he wasn't even in the movie that Lord and Miller were making. He was
Right.
added after the fact when they brought in Ron Howard, and it would be interesting to see a cut, if any such rough cut exists, of what that movie might have looked like when it was still the version that Lord and Miller were halfway through making before they got voted off Woke Island and tossed out of the Cathyverse. But yeah, I think there were elements of that movie that were pretty good, and I would even go so far as to say that the kid that they hired to play Han Solo
Was
wasn't
decent.
terrible.
Yeah,
he was
wasn't
decent.
terrible. Although I want to point out, there's a guy out there who is the spitting image of Han Solo. Even has the freaking scar. It's in a different spot, but it's on his chin. It's close enough for government work. He sounds like him. He went and did a casting call for this role, and they turned him down. And from what I understand, allegedly, this is what I heard and read, was he was too much like the original. I don't understand what that means or why you would use that as an excuse, but there was a lot of Kathleen Kennedy dipping into the barrel in her early tenure. And when it
sure
became
does seem that way.
When it became evident that signing a contract with Disney to do a movie does not mean you will get to do that movie. It only means that you will be able to work for that movie until they get rid of you and hire someone else to put on the freaking cast, right?
And I know. And there is an entire graveyard in Kathy Kennedy's backyard of either projects that were announced and never started or completed, and projects where she changed directors midstream or fired the director or rejected scripts. I would still like to see what episode 9 would have looked like when Colin Trevorrow was writing and directing it. It would have been a hell of a lot better movie than the episode 9 we got. Granted, that's not saying much because it's such a terrible movie in every way, but one would also be interested to know what she found so objectionable about him and his script, because that guy spent like a year and a half doing pre-production on that picture. He wrote the entire script. It was greenlit. They were going to go into production. Somehow, some way, some reason, she fires his ass. And that's inexplicably bizarre behavior on the part of a studio head when your own personal hubris has such a negative effect on the final product that your studio puts out. And shit, what was that, 6-7 years ago now, and she still managed to hang on? But I think it was The Acolyte that might have put the whole thing over the top. I think she was a dead woman walking after that thing saw the light of day, personally.
Well, yes, but keep in mind, Skeleton Crew, which I actually enjoyed watching quite a bit, and I know a lot of people who really liked it. It didn't do anything because no one watched it. It didn't pick up a fan following until almost 8 weeks after it had released, and it was released if I understand it right, it was released straight to Disney. I mean, not even like Disney Plus. It was just straight to the freaking streaming service. I woke up one morning and there was an entire freaking season of Skeleton Crew. And I looked at my wife and I was like, you want to give Disney one more chance? We watched the whole freaking thing in a sitting. We ordered pizza. Yeah. We never left the freaking couch.
And you said it right there. Should we give it one more chance? It goes back to one of the things I was saying in the monologue, that there has been such a constant cavalcade of content after content after content after content that it all becomes a blur, and watching the next thing becomes more of a chore than anything else. It's not something you want to do. It's like, oh my God, there's another fucking new Star Wars thing coming out. Jesus Christ.
It's a risk. It's a risk. Every time you watch one of these shows, you have the fear of what they've done with Luke Skywalker, that or actually, no, Luke Skywalker, they were gentle with. Thrawn, I don't know what they got against blue guys, but that was ridiculous.
Why does he have to have a beer gut?
I can even get over that. I mean, although in the lore, Thrawn was a military. To make the equivalency, Army, right? Mm-hmm. He was the tantamount military commander. He was just as fucking useful on the ground in a squad of 12 people as he is commanding an entire Starfleet and ground command. He was so intuitive in his capabilities that his perfect example. Hold on, back up. This is better. There is a situation. They get Han Solo. They got him. They got him with one of the gravitational puller things, the space tractor doohickey, and he's screwed. Nothing he can do would get loose with this. Chewie looks at him and says, "We need to do a crazy Ivan." Han says, "Absolutely. I'm going to go flip the script. You hit the button. We're getting the hell out of here." Luke's like, "What the hell is going on?" Thrawn has no idea Luke's around. No clue. He's just after the Millennium Falcon, more as an esoteric bit of history and art than anything else, because it's famous. He doesn't even know who's flying the damn thing. Maybe he assumes it's Han, but it might be any number of other people who have flown it in the past 30 years. So we don't know. So we're going to take it. We're going to take it apart, look at it, see what's going on with it, right? Han Solo flips the Millennium Falcon, flies straight at the gravitational thing, and breaks contact by using the thrusters in combination with the gravitational pull in order to overpower the thing. Thrawn turns and looks at his second in command and says, "Admiral Paleon, who is in charge of that particular gravitational tool?" He says, "Mr. Robert over here, step this way." And they walk over and they find this guy. And this dude is straight from the Executor. This guy served Vader. He stands up, salutes, and stands there and he says, "How long have you been trained on this machine?" 18 months, sir. How long have you been working this job? Almost 2 years, although I did spend quite a bit of time as a floor jockey for a while. Yes, sir. Have you ever been trained what to do in the event that someone with a souped up starcraft were to fly straight at your device? Yes, but only once, and it was in the first few weeks of training. It never crossed my mind that he would be dumb enough to try that. In training, they always run into the emitter. They always hit it. They never actually successfully pull that off. And he's like, "Are you aware that that was the Millennium Falcon?" "No, sir, no one told me who it was." "You know that's Han Solo." "Well, I do know that, but no one told me." "Very good job. Excellent job. You were able to cut the power before it damaged our ship, allowing us to chase Han Solo further. We live to fight another day." And he promotes him on the spot and goes back to what he's doing. And homeboy pissed himself while having this conversation because Vader would have killed him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's effective storytelling. Because throughout the whole story, right up until the end, you think the guy is about to get executed and he gets promoted. And that's what makes Thrawn such an interesting character.
Better played in the book, dude, because Thrawn doesn't really carry a weapon on him, and he walks over and picks up his weapon and checks whether and how that guy answered the question determined whether or not he lived. Because you were trained, you are well trained enough to have predicted this might happen. You were aware that people try this, but there is nowhere in your training regimen that actually tells you what to do in the event that this happens. And in your experience, there is no successful way to pull this off. So there's no reason for you to think it is possible, right? And okay, very good job, sir. Right?
He is ruthless, but he is also fair and reasonable.
Yes.
And level-headed.
Absolutely unemotional. That's one of the features of Thrawn Nudo.
Yeah, which is a quality that Darth Vader doesn't necessarily have in great abundance.
Well, he's a Sith. He's not supposed to be emotionless. So, like, the thing that the Emperor wanted to do with Thrawn, and I'll get off Thrawn in a minute. He's one of my favorite characters. Timothy Zahn pulled an absolute gem out of the void when he created this character.
Oh yeah, he's the best Star Wars character that didn't originate in the first 3 movies. Absolutely, not close.
Not even close. He was only ever outsmarted by one individual, and I think his name was Tarek Booster. And he was basically a pirate. He was once part of the Empire, but he was a pirate, and he tricked Thrawn into basically giving him a Star Destroyer by using targeting systems from a bunch of different missiles they had stolen, but they had already sold all the missiles. And so the Star Destroyer calls back to the Chimera Thrawn and is like, hey, they've got 3,000 locks on us. And he's like, well, Thrawn goes, ask them what they're going to do with their prisoners. It says they're going to leave us on the station. Surrender the vessel. We need the manpower more than we need the material. Scuttle everything you can scuttle, leave the vessel functional, and get rid of all the turbolasers, right? Like, give them a boat, but not the boat they think they're getting. And he takes it and turns it into a casino, a hyperspace capable casino that can come to your planet and have a party. It's brilliant. He paints it bright red. It's awesome.
And that brings me back to the point of when Kathy took over, rather than, looking at the expanded universe, taking what she wanted. If the objective was truly to make a really awesome series of movies that Star Wars fans would have loved, then that would have been a no-brainer. She would have brought in Timothy Zahn to write screenplays of those 3 novels that are already much beloved by the fandom. Everybody would have been over the moon excited about it. The movies probably would have been really great, but no, she, out of her own personal hubris and desire for dictatorial control, she said, nope, all of that expanded universe shit goes directly in the toilet, and I'm pressing the flush handle because, damn it, this is going to be the Kathyverse. Everything we put out is going to be a direct result of me, people I hired, things I approved. That is the way this is going to be. And quality does not factor into my thinking even a little bit, even though I have never had any sort of a creative job before, even though I used to be the chick who gets Steven Spielberg's coffee and somehow managed to wrangle myself an associate producer's credit on Star Wars and Indiana Jones and what have you. And man, and I feel so bad for George that he chose her for that role, because it comes back to George. He was the one that picked her, and what a mistake that was, which I'm certain that he rues to this very day.
I kind of think that his hand may have been forced in that somehow.
It's possible.
Bob Iger feels like the man to blame to me. He feels guilty. I can't prove it. I have no evidence whatsoever. It's just my autism points straight at him and says, he did it. He did it. I don't know how. I don't know by what mechanism, but I think I think so. And while I'm hopeful, I'm eternally hopeful for Star Wars. There's so much fertile ground there. It's such a well-established property, and it has so many fans. If we can string, or if they can string together a Mandalorian, a Skeleton Crew, an Andor, that would be good enough for the next couple of years. What I'm afraid of is what's her name? Elwyn Brennan is going to step in and kick Dave Filoni's nuts and out of his body and stick them in her purse and hold on to the purse strings really tight. But I have faith that Dave Filoni has been in the business long enough to be able to accomplish miracles with virtually nothing, because he will find people who care about the product and care about the franchise and care about the things. And as you can see with the first season of Mandalorian, if the people care about it, they do well.
And we still don't know what that power structure is going to look like. We know that she is going to be in charge of the business end and he is going to be in charge of the creative end, but there has to be one or the other has to have final power of the veto. And typically that would be the person on the business side who holds the purse strings. And as you mentioned, we don't know anything about this woman, at least I don't, but there certainly is the possibility that she is just, like you said, looking to put this dude's balls in her handbag, and that's the only thing that matters. And she is going to be making decisions with that in mind, and not necessarily the quality of the product that they are putting out. And that will all have to remain to be seen.
So this throws me back to the Kubrick Shining. We've talked about it before, what a nightmare the filming of The Shining was. Kubrick was such a stickler for detail that he had some of those scenes run 126 times. Homegirl lost her voice twice. She had a full-on breakdown. Jack Nicholson scared her so fucking bad she still had nightmares when she was like 40. Like 20 years later, she would wake up in the middle of the night hearing Jack talking in the other room and shitting herself.
that was Kubrick's defining feature as a director. He liked to induce actual, honest to God, mental illness in his actors because he thought that produced better performances. And and part of that is making people run a take 50, 60, 70, 80 times, even when you've already got something perfectly satisfactory already. Just keep doing it anyway because you like being a cruel taskmaster. Yeah, Kubrick was a real piece of work.
Oh yeah, dollar bills on that one. But what I'm getting at is this: Stephen King hates that film. He when everything was signed initially with the filming house, and I can't remember who filmed it, but it was like Full Moon Entertainment or some crap like that, and King had absolute creative control over it. And then when Kubrick was signed to direct, he allowed that control to be taken from him because he trusted Kubrick's vision. They talked, they discussed it, and then Kubrick went and made the thing that he made, which, by the way, is one of the greatest films made in the history of the horror genre, because it's completely unique and has nothing that dips into anything else anywhere. It is its own nugget of absolute terror.
Right.
And that's a good thing. It allows it to stand by itself as its own property without the support of Stephen King or any of his fans, because they're Shining fans.
But if you're Stephen King, you're looking at that and saying, well, this, irrespective of how objectively good it is as a motion picture, viewing it in isolation, it is not a sufficiently faithful adaptation of my novel as I was hoping for, and consequently, that is why I hate it. And these are the things that happen when creative minds butt up against each other.
Have you read The Shining Unabridged?
Many years ago, yes.
Okay. It is a quite faithful adaptation. There are some things in it that are not in it that maybe should have been, and there are some things that aren't in it that were never mentioned in the book. But the things that you see that aren't in the book are kind of like, well, it had to have happened, right?
Right.
There's no way you get to the following scene in the book without this scene having taken place. And so I got to give respect to Kubrick for his ability to extrapolate scenes to add to the narrative rather than to just recreate a narrative that was in front of us, right?
Right.
He could have come in and done a scene by scene comparison and done it like it was a comic book panel or whatever, and he didn't do that. He came in and gave you more of what made The Shining than Stephen King gave you in the first draft.
Exactly. And you have to acknowledge the fact that the next novelist who is totally pleased with a filmic adaptation of their work is going to be the first one, because they are never fully pleased, because it's impossible to make the movie the way that they imagine the book in their head. It can't be done. And that's unless the novelist is the one who writes the screenplay, and that pretty rarely happens.
Even then, bro. Even then.
The
novelists create. They generally don't rehash, right? So if you give
they don't have any of the same constraints that a filmmaker does.
If you give a novelist the ability to adapt his own film, he's going to add crap to it because he's still creating. It's his property, and he doesn't think there's anything wrong with adding stuff, right?
And the film is going to be 17 hours long.
Exactly. And here's the thing. I think we need to change our views on films. I don't think it's necessarily inappropriate to have a 4-hour epic movie. Given the modern streaming platforms that we're utilizing and functioning on, these things can happen and make sense and be continuous without having to have the built-in breaks and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously for like theater productions, you limit that to around, 90 minutes, 2 hours, and just kind of, oh, we've gone over. My bad.
Oh, should I do the thing? Ladies and gentlemen, thanks ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius tonight. We do deeply apologize for the technical difficulties that we experienced from time to time, but we know you are a very forgiving audience, and we do thank you very much for that. We hope you have a fine tomorrow and an edifying Tuesday and a very pleasant rest of your week. We will see you back here next Sunday evening, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Like we always do, we will be loaded for bear and have lots more fun and frothy stuff to discuss. Take care. See you next time. Get off my lawn.
Kathleen Kennedy, it's great to see you go. This one's for you, for the homies we lost. Bye.